Hi, it's Monty from Sportive Cyclist, and I am pleased to report that all of the bits that I ordered in order to fix up my bike have arrived. So in this video I'm going to attempt to put my bike back together. So let's get into it. Park tool cable cutters, bottom bracket removal tool, a pricey set of Trek bottom bracket bearings, some bar, nutrition. Wish I could open this. Bit nervous about this really. Chainring, smaller chainring, bottom bracket press tool, road shift cable set, brake cable set, that's the bag, bar tape, new cassette, jockey wheels, chain. Really, Shimano should sponsor me for this, shouldn't they? And park tool, brake pads, and finally the headset bearings. Nice. I'm going to start with the bottom bracket, so I'm going to clear all of this stuff over to the side and get cracking. Yes, I need. Yeah, I went out a bit. That's the first test. This looks pretty lethal. The idea is this bit goes into the bottom bracket thusly, you push it through until it clicks, and then we hammer it back through the other way in order that this bit pushes out the bearing. Clicked into position, rubber mallet. Well, that didn't work. Oh, it sort of worked. Let's try that again. Oh, whizzo. Next one. That doesn't sound good. It's seized, is it? A few smart cracks with the hammer. Survey the damage. Well, that went flying. There's the crusty badger. Yeah, it looks pretty grimy. This isn't actually the bearing that's seized. So this is the bottom bracket seating where the seized bearing was. Once we've cleaned this up, we'll be in a position to install the new bearings. We might have actually done this. So step one of maybe 1,000 complete. I have successfully removed the bottom bracket bearings. In fact, I've just realised I've not picked up the actual tool. I've cleaned out where the bearings sit in the bottom bracket. Now it's time to fit the new ones. Oh, I've decided to keep this plastic housing in here and not replace it. There was one that came with the new set of bearings. This seems in reasonable nick. I don't want to push my luck too much in terms of shoving metal items against a carbon frame. Quite a lot of money for about 3 seconds of use. Anyone want a BB90 bottom bracket removing? Drop me an email. So my next job is to put together the bearing press. So these are not super cheap. I think this one was about 70 odd pounds. A bit cheaper than the Park Tools one, but I went with this one because for these are known as drifts, he says, by checking the word on the packet. These drifts have a multitude of different sizes here, which should allow me to use this particular tool on future projects. But for now, I just need to work out how to use it on this project. Grief, Charlie Brown. On each of these drifts, you've got different numbers here, which presumably denote different diameters of bearing that can be pressed. Now the BB90 removal tool also came with its own drifts. These are specific to, one assumes, yes, the Trek bearings here. I don't know what diameter these ones are. Let's see. Don't need these. Fits on there. This goes through the bottom bracket, then the drifts go on, then the handles, screw, 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 in it goes. Carbon frame doesn't crack, winner, winner, chicken dinner, let's go for it. Time to fit some bearings. Apply liberally. Is that really the grease that I want to use? Not quite a grease disaster, but this is not the viscosity of grease that I was after. I think I mustn't have used it in a while. And it's separated. Does that happen with grease? Let's try that again. I think I'm going to try the high risk technique of both on at the same time. Paid for the park tool, so I may as well make use of it. It slots on into there. This one slots on into here. One assumes these go on like this. Moment of truth time. Slipping in. That's what she said. Well, that seems to be sort of in. Looks rather neat. There it is in there. Does it turn around? Nice. Another tool that's seen about 2 minutes of service. Very enjoyable 2 minutes, 70 quid well spent. So, like the bottom bracket removal tool, if you have need of any bearings pressing, BB90 or otherwise, well, do get in touch. End of day one, and I haven't actually managed to achieve a great deal so far on my bike rebuild. We had friends come round this afternoon, and that's rather put things back. That said, I have managed to do possibly the job that I was most concerned about, which was removing the old bottom bracket bearings and fitting the new ones. So at least for the next few bits of the rebuild, we're on to things that I know how to do. Then it's redoing the cabling and the bar tape, and then we're very much back into incompetent land. It's not exactly a dream build. I'll see you on the flip side. Who says flip side? So that's what it's going to look like. Now, I think from memory there's a locator pin on the back that sits behind the crank arm. Let's have a look. There is a little engraving here which also is meant to line up with the crank arm. So if I do that, and have this lined up here, see, that goes there. Next job is to grease all of these bolt holes and then get the bolts in. So, chainring. Okay, we've got a couple of the bolts in. I'm going to clean this up and then make a start on the rest of them. So I just went and got my multi-headed screwdriver. I think that's probably going to make life a bit easier than trying to do it by hand. These bolts take a T25 bit. T25. Unhelpfully, this is a broken screwdriver that doesn't really keep the bit in. This is probably going to make me look even more incompetent. I'm sure there'll be comments about how crap this pure bike grease is, but whatevers. It's never seized up before. Now obviously each of these is going to need torquing properly with the old torque wrench, and before I fit the last one, I think you can see these grooves here. Presumably there is a specific tool that fits into those. The idea is that you prevent those turning as they're seated here, whilst you put the bolt in here and tighten that bolt. But I don't have the specific tool, so I shall be using a screwdriver, I think. And you can see actually that turns as I'm turning it here. If it keeps doing that, that's obviously going to prevent me from torquing it properly. Now to find a suitable screwdriver. So the bolts are loosely tightened. Now I need to consult Zins. There's a handy table at the back that tells you all of the torque. I put a bookmark in. The road bike fastener torque table. These are Shimano chainring fixing bolts, steel, between 8 to 11 Newton meters. Get out my trusty torque wrench. There is a post about torque wrenches on my blog in case you're interested and want to buy one. And this is an X Tools Pro. I said T25. That goes on there. You turn the knob in order to get different ones. Literally just forgotten. We said 8 to 11. Let's go 10. Card there just to protect those. This is not necessarily recommended. We're holding that in place. Here we are turning. I'm not sure that's how they do it in a bike shop. Bloody untightened it. What a dickhead. Well, it did click. Well, we're done. I guess the moral of the story is get the right tool. If you can't get the right tool, use a Stanley set square. Other moral of the story, at least from my perspective, is to get a proper vise for doing this sort of stuff. Or maybe I should have just fitted the chain rings when they're on the bike. Who knows? Now it's time to reinstall the other pedal crank. I'll show you the bits. This is a 105. This is actually a Stages power meter. For all intents and purposes, it's a standard 105 Shimano pedal crank arm. And here we've got the two pedal bolts. I don't know what that is. I do know what that is. It sits in one of these holes in there. This bit that sort of fits in there. This here, which I'll talk about in a second. This is the tool for fitting this. Right, let's do it. Now, as I discovered when doing a test run, the key thing when putting the crank back into the bottom bracket with these bottom bracket bearings that have the dust covers is to avoid popping out the dust cover on the other side. So I'm going to do this quite carefully and hopefully I'm not going to balls it up. Applying a bit more grease. This is the red TF2 rather than the nice eco stuff. Sliding those lightly into there. Basically not tightening them at all, they're just there to be in position. The key thing when installing the pedal crank is you need to pre-load, I don't know, the tension. Use one of these, it slots into there, and then it just finger tightens. And there we go. So, task 1 complete, the bottom bracket's been replaced, I've reinstalled the crankset. My time today doing a bit more bike rebuild is limited, other tasks around the house are calling me, but before I get onto those, I think I'll reinstall the front and rear derailleurs, at least to make the frame feel a little bit more like a bike. Surely that can't be too hard, can it? I've just realised I need to install the new Jockey wheels in the rear derailleur before I do that. So these are the old Jockey wheels. The only bits that I need are the 2 bolts there and there, and the new wheels I got are a key. There you go. Lovely. One of them is the tension one, which is this one, helpfully written on, and the other one is, I don't know, guide one. Anyway, we need to make sure that 1, they go in the right place, and 2, they rotate in the right way, and I get confused every time. Quick Google check later, and it turns out that the top Jockey wheel is the guide, because that's the one that guides the chain onto the correct cog of the cassette or sprocket, and the lower one is the tensioning Jockey wheel. Now the Zinn manual tells me to pack the Jockey wheels with grease, so I'll get on with that. There's a little arrow in it, time to work out what direction it goes in. Ta-da! Need to make sure that this bolt here is behind that sort of ridgy bit there. And we're on. Next, front derailleur. A bit grimy. Is this hanger? That's the bit where the cable fixes. Moron. Let's try that again. So it's this bit with this bolt that needs to go in there. That looks a lot better, doesn't it? Torque wrench. I wasn't really expecting that to happen. As I tightened the bolt using my torque wrench, well, it's pulled the thread out of here, and I think I know what snafu I did. Basically, somewhere in the cleaning process I must have mixed up between this fixing bolt here, which fixes the derailleur to the frame, and this bolt here, which is used to secure the gear cable at the back. This shaped nut here was missing as I was tightening the bolt to fix the derailleur onto the boss, which is there, and as I was screwing the bolt through the hole here, it was pulling that out and just not tightening. I've tried tightening it properly now with that correctly in place, and it ain't tightening I think a new derailleur is required. Knackered parts drawer. All of which means I'm going to have to pause things for a few days whilst I get that derailleur ordered and for it to come through. I can't believe I thought I was going to do this in one day. Hey ho, I've actually quite enjoyed it. If I'm going to break one part of the bike, better to break something which comes off the frame and costs about 40 quid rather than the bottom bracket in the course of putting in the new bottom bracket bearings. All else being equal, could be worse. I'll see you in a few days.